We're going to be going back to Pretoria, where the South African Revenue Services is hosting the 31st Governing Council of the World Customs Organization, the WCO East and Southern Africa ESA meeting. Well, the countries meet annually to discuss and approve regional strategies and policies and programs related to customs. Among those expected to attend is Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana. SABC News reporter Katlego Legodi is there now, and he joins us live as he chats to SARS Commissioner Edward Kisweta. Over to you.
A very good afternoon to you, Juliet, and to our viewers at home. A very important meeting that you find us at today. This being a meeting of the global custom leaders coming into South Africa for this annual meeting. So this is hosted by the South African Revenue Service. You know very well that they are the administrators and the facilitators of trade and customs here in the country. Here we find about 24 of those countries from the continent, from the East, South and Africa, just coming through to just really look at ideas, opportunities, but also the challenges where customs are concerned. And here joining us this afternoon would be the SARS Commissioner, Mr. Edward Kisweta. He's the chairperson here and our host, inviting us as well, just looking at where we find ourselves. This meeting coming through at a time, the Commissioner, when we know very well that there are those frictions globally and also even regionally. There's a huge talk about regional integration, and customs become very important for these emerging economies. Hence we find you gathering all of them here into Pretoria. Welcome to the SABC. Just give us a sense of the importance of really taking stock of global customs and where we find ourselves as South Africa right now.
Thank you. So let me first start by saying that we are hosting the East and Southern Africa region. The global world of customs is divided into a number of regions, and all of this are preparatory work that ultimately will culminate in a meeting of the World Customs Organization in Brussels in about just more than a month from now. And a lot of technical committees and processes have produced that work, which over the next 2 days will be presented to the Governing Council of the Regional Customs Organization. And certain decisions and resolutions will then take forward, and that influences the global narrative of customs and reflects our needs as a region and how we would like to influence the overall global narrative. And we are embarking on a 5-year strategic plan. But let me focus just for a moment on the important role of customs, which is often not understood, because we see the visible manifestation at the ports of entry, where customs officers are uniformed, and we almost involuntarily link them to an enforcement function. But customs is significantly more than just enforcement. Firstly, the customs function at our ports of entry, they do manage the passage of goods and travelers across our borders. And increasingly, as we find, forms a central function towards the facilitation of trade between countries. Of course, there's the narrow mandate of customs, which is to facilitate legitimate trade, to collect any tax revenue, to ensure that the collection of tax revenues, customs duties that are due are in fact collected. But importantly, customs also plays a role of ensuring the well-being of society. And why is that important? Increasingly, we see a proliferation of illegal and illicit flow of goods across our borders. And this does two things that are both very harmful. The first is it distorts our local and domestic economy, because you have then unfair competition of goods that are either misdeclared or underdeclared or incorrectly classified, and that distorts the local economy, it destroys jobs, and has other negative and adverse effects. But secondly, many of these goods are also harmful to society. They fall outside of a good governance and regulatory environment, and therefore also is impacts on the well-being of our society and ultimately erodes social cohesion.
Yeah. Commissioner, if I can come in there, we see talks around modernization where some of these customs and administrators are concerned, various of those countries, just talking about also their experiences in administering customs. There are talks around e-commerce. There's really a huge take on e-commerce coming into this space. There's a need for regulation there, but also talks around the Africa Free Continental Trade Area as a facilitator in terms of regional integration, the harmonizing of those policies. Let's touch on just a few of those issues as well and see how these 2 days will see these issues championed.
So there are two important phenomena. In addition to the global dynamics of trade at the moment, of uncertainty and the fracturing of trade routes, I think two very important phenomena that we have to grapple with. The one is the exponential growth in e-commerce, and secondly, the proliferation of crime, cross-border crime, illicit trade, trade-based money laundering. All of that creates an additional burden on us, because the balance between facilitating trade, which is a service to society, has to also be balanced with the enforcement of our laws. And so this is where technology deployment, the deployment of artificial intelligence, plays a very important role. Central to this is the data and information that is exchanged between various players on the supply and demand chain. What then happens, and what you will hear us discuss, is how do we improve data sharing without compromising data privacy? How do we build technology platforms that allows for data exchange, data reciprocity, but in an environment of trust? Secondly, how do we integrate our systems so that we can function more effectively, firstly as a region, but ultimately as a globe? And then once you have the data and you have these platforms, how do you use it? And so simply in our case, it is used on the one hand to facilitate an excellent service, to minimize disruptions at our ports of entry, but to do that with an overarching risk management framework that allows us to detect goods which are not permissible, goods which are illegal, and then intervene when necessary to deal with that. And so that's why we talk of integrated data, integrated risk management, but also the deployment of more tools to help us detect and manage risk.
Commissioner, thank you very much for your time. I know these are high-level meetings, so I'm going to let you go. These meetings are going to be starting in the next hour, and you see most of those leaders looking to tap into them. We have the Deputy Finance Minister that is here representing the Minister of Finance, and most of them are just looking at ensuring that there are lessons as well as they also look at coming through with a strategy going forward. It's back to you in studio for now, Juliet.
Well, that was SABC News reporter Katlego Legodi coming to us live from Pretoria, where the South African Revenue Services, SARS, is hosting the 31st Governing Council of the World Customs Organization East and Southern Africa meeting.